I've been camping alone for years. It's something I do to clear my head. No phone signal, no people, just trees and water. This trip was the same. A small lake, not on maps. A thin footpath. My dad used to take me there when I was a kid. I've been back a few times since. Never once did I see anyone else. The first day was ordinary. I set up, I walked, I sat by the fire and slept like a rock. Quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like being underwater. I liked it. On the second day, I walked the shoreline. I walked the same loop 3, maybe 4 times. It was peaceful. The trees leaned over the water, a light breeze. Nothing unusual. Then, on a lap where I thought I'd already seen everything, I noticed footprints. Bare footprints, right at the edge of the tree line. Fresh, clear. That hit me wrong. I've been around that lake so many times. I should have seen them. I hadn't. They weren't shoe prints. Their feet. Not just 1 or 2. A trail. They looked like someone stood at the tree line looking at the water, then walked back into the woods. The spot where they stood didn't have a clear path to the water. No place to sit. No reason to take shoes off. And there were no other prints nearby. Not even a place where anyone could have washed their feet. I stared at the prints for a long time. Part of me wanted to follow them. Part of me decided not to. I didn't want to go into those trees. So I walked back to my tent. I keep glancing toward the tree line. I wanted to tell myself it was nothing, but it felt wrong. As evening came, I built my fire higher. I stacked more wood than I needed. I told myself that would calm me down. It didn't. After dark, I heard footsteps, slow, from the trees. At first I thought it might be deer or a raccoon. Then the rhythm changed. It sounded like 2 people walking side by side. I sat very still. The steps stopped at the edge of the light. I watched the shadows. 2 shapes emerged, a man and a woman. They stopped where the firelight faded. I couldn't see faces. I couldn't tell their age. Their clothes were dark. The woman stood close to the man. "Can I help you?" I asked. My voice felt small. The woman turned and ran. She vanished into the trees without a sound. The man stayed. He didn't move. He didn't look back. He simply stood there. Then I noticed his feet. There. The same kind of prints I'd found earlier. No shoes. No socks. He didn't take a step. After a moment, he turned the same way and walked back into the dark without looking at me. I couldn't explain the way my heart dropped. I felt like I'd been watching a replay of something I had no part in. I didn't want to be there another minute. I packed fast. My camp was simple, so it wasn't hard. I pushed my tent poles into my bag and wrapped the sleeping pad. I threw the cooler into the truck. I left a few unlit logs on the fire so it would die down on its own. I started walking out through the trees. The trail out is long, 2 hours if you move steady. For the first 10 minutes, I kept glancing over my shoulder. I expected to see them behind me at any time. I didn't. After an hour, I relaxed a little. The dark seemed less threatening the farther I put between myself and the lake. Then I heard feet again, running far off. A burst, then nothing. I kept walking. A few minutes later, the same sound, but now to my left. Short bursts of running, like someone trying to make noise and then quiet it. It was always just out of sight. It felt like they were following the sound of my steps, like someone walking behind me and then darting away when I looked. I picked up my pace. I didn't run, but I walked faster. Every time the noise started, I felt it crawl up my spine. My skin prickled. The woods went quiet when there were no footsteps. It was the kind of silence that presses on your ears. I made it to my truck. I drove home without stopping. I did not tell anyone. I did not want to make it real by telling someone. It felt better to keep it simple. I told myself I'd never go back to that lake. I didn't. Months went by. Then, one evening, a rain had come through and the next morning the yard was soft with mud. I opened my back door to get the mail. On the porch, in the mud, near the threshold, was a single, barefoot print. Not a full trail, just one print. Clear, a little longer than average, exactly the kind I had seen at the lake. I froze. My house is in a quiet neighborhood. The porch is 3 feet off the ground. You would have to climb to get there. There were no signs of forced entry, no other footmarks. A single print, like someone had stepped there and stopped.
I took the print and compared it to the photo from the lake. The shape and size matched. Not identical, but close enough that my stomach turned. The idea that those feet had been at my porch was impossible, and then suddenly, very possible. I called the police. They came and took a report. They asked the usual questions about trespassing. They said someone could have wandered in the night. They suggested setting up a camera. None of it felt right. I showed them the photo. They nodded politely and left. That night, I slept with the living room light on. I checked the locks 3 times before bed. I told myself I was being paranoid. A month later, on a Saturday afternoon, I was cleaning out the garage. I moved a box of old camping gear and found, at the bottom, a small leather pouch I used for holding matches. It was the same pouch I thought I packed the night I left the lake. I opened it and stopped breathing. Inside was a small, smooth stone. I did not own that stone. It had not come from my truck. It was round and dark, the kind of thing you might find on a lake bed, damp along one edge as if it had been wet recently. There was a smear of mud on one side. On the other side, faintly, a partial print had been pressed into the surface, an imprint of bare toes and part of a sole. I stood in the garage and felt the air go thin. How did that stone get in my stuff? How did someone touch my gear? How close had they been to me the night I packed? I could make a list of rational explanations. Maybe I dropped it and didn't remember. Maybe someone found it and put it back. Maybe it was a coincidence. Those explanations didn't help. They never do when you already carry the memory of feet running in the dark. I put the stone back in the pouch. I wrapped the pouch in an old shirt and put it back in the box. I closed the box and shoved it into the corner. I shut the garage door and went inside. I do not sleep by myself anymore. I do not go camping alone. I still have the photo. I still have the print on my porch. I still have the stone in the garage. I have no proof beyond those things and the feeling that followed me out of that forest. Sometimes I think about the footprints at the lake, how I walked past them and didn't notice, how they stood and stared at the water, how the woman ran and the man stayed, how they didn't hurry, how they didn't look back. The worst part is this. The print on my porch was only one footstep, just a single bare print. It ended at the threshold. It didn't cross over. Whoever left it stopped there. They were close enough to my home to reach in, close enough to watch me as I slept if they wanted to. I never saw them again. I never will. At least, I hope I won't. A few nights ago, I was folding laundry. I found something in the pocket of an old jacket I hadn't worn since summer. A small, dark pebble. Smooth, worn to the touch. Not like the stone in the garage, This one had a faint smudge of dirt on it. I rubbed it with my thumb. The dirt came away and left a pattern. It looked like the impression of a bare heel. I set the pebble on the table and stared at it for a long time. I have never left the porch unlocked at night. I have never invited anyone in. I have never handed a stray stone into my pocket. I still have the photo. I still have the print. I still have the stones. Every so often, when the house is quiet and the light from the street lamp makes thin bars across the floor, I walk to my porch and look out into the yard. I listen. Sometimes I hear nothing. Sometimes, far off, there is the soft sound of feet on leaves. Short bursts, bare feet, running, then stopping, then nothing. If they ever wanted me, they didn't need to cross my threshold. They only needed to stand just out of my light and wait.